Hey there, everybody. How's it going? Nice to see you again. Hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world. So, it's Christmas Eve 2025, and I'm going to stray a little bit into the realm of religion here, and I hope, and photography, and because there was a lesson learned that I'd like to share. And I hope you will indulge me as it is Christmas Eve. So if now's not the time, then I don't know when would be. It seems appropriate to me. So, you know, I made a video the other day about photography is broken. And what I've come to realize is that it really comes down to a question of faith. And let me explain what I'm talking about. So, as some of you may know, if you've been a subscriber, you've been watching some of my videos. Well, first let me say, you know, I'm never going to get to 100,000 subscribers because I don't pretend to know everything, and I don't pretend to have all the answers. Like I'm questioning, I'm on a journey, and I bring you along with me. I'm on a journey of discovery. And right now, where I am with my art and my photography is, where does it fit into this changing landscape? Because, you know, since the dawn of photography until about 2005, I would say, and that's just off the top of my head, you know, things were evolutionary. Things progressed evolutionarily. They didn't change all that much. It was the same technology, and it was the same paradigm for many years. And that's how, you know, I started photography in 1985, and that's how I came up. That's where I learned. That's what I learned, and those were my goals and my aspirations, and why I got into photography in the first place was that paradigm, was that way of doing it. Okay. And in 2005, you know, there was a revolution. It's a digital revolution. And in the beginning, it was just the cameras. There was no more film. You captured your images digitally, as many, obviously, as you know, if you're watching this. And, but in the past 20 years, since 2005, a lot else has changed in regards to imaging and how we consume images, in the sense that social media, you know, screens, phones, iPads, computer, etc. Okay, social media mostly, and so so how does what originally I was so excited about in photography, how does that translate into this modern environment? And that's the journey I've been on, and that's the philosophical conundrum that I've been exploring. And I realized after I made the video yesterday, and so these videos are a way for me to explore the topics. So I realized that it really does come down to a question of faith. And let me explain. So some of you may know, as I started out saying, as some of you may know, back in September, well, it goes back to 2019. In 2019, I went to see a cardiologist. And I was diagnosed, I forget how I got there, but anyway, I went to see a cardiologist. Oh, I had a heart murmur or something, I don't know. They sent me to a cardiologist, doesn't matter. And I had an echocardiogram, and where they, you know, ultrasound of your heart, and they found out that I had what's called HCM, hypertrophic cardiac myopathy. It's very common, evidently. And so what that is the heart is a muscle, and the center section of the muscle, the center part of your heart, it should be about 1 centimeter thick for most normal human beings, and it gets enlarged. Like a weightlifter, when it works out, it gets bigger, the muscles get bigger. Well, the center section of my heart got bigger, possibly through high blood pressure, etc. There's different ways that can happen, I learned. And so I was diagnosed with this HCM, and okay, well, we went merrily about our business, and we had COVID and all the rest of it. And so back in September, I went back to the cardiologist, and they put me on a heart monitor for a month, and just to see what was going on, and no real reason, just to check, right? because it's a thing they can do. And so they put me on this monitor. And so that was on, so I met with the cardiologist on a Tuesday. And on Tuesday, they put the heart monitor on. And now remember, you know, when it comes to medical stuff, like, oh, well, you urgently need this test, so we'll schedule you 2 months from now, okay? So nothing happens quickly unless it's an emergency, all right? So they put me on this heart monitor, and that was on a Tuesday. And Friday afternoon, I got a phone call. And they said, we've scheduled you for an angiogram for Monday morning. So can you make it? I was like, what? And what an angiogram is, it's a $30,000 test where they take this wire with a camera on it. And well, I don't know what it is. It's a catheter, I guess. And it goes up into your artery, through your arm, and into your heart. And then they can look around in your heart. And if you have any blockages in your arteries, they can put stents in and fix them, okay? And the reason why this was so urgent was they found that I had a VT rhythm in my heart, ventricular tachycardia. And evidently that's really, really bad, because for most people, we'll come back to that, for most people, the ventricular tachycardia means you're about to die, okay? And so that's why, but they didn't tell me it was for most people. Okay? They didn't explain all that. They just said, you know, this is urgent, we need to get in there, because 95% of the people that have VTs have blockages of their arteries, and they are about to have a heart attack, or are having heart attacks. Okay, fair enough. So we go in, we 2-3 hours, we prep for this procedure. They roll me into the place where they do it. I'm just awake for this, and but I wasn't really paying attention. All I know is that when they rolled me in there, I was in there for about 8 minutes, and they rolled me back out. I was like, ooh, that's interesting. And we get back to the room, and it took like 5 hours to clot, because I guess they give you blood thinners, and it's an artery, it's under pressure. It's not a vein, which takes 15 minutes to clot. Anyway, we get back in the room, and the cardiologist is stumped. And he says, yeah, there's nothing to see. There's no artery blockages. He said, I am totally confused. He didn't say that, but you could tell he was stumped, okay? And you don't want to play stump the cardiologist. Not a fun game. And he said, I'm stumped. He said, I don't know. He said, it could be. He said, the next most likely thing is scarring, and that's bad. Scarring from the HCM, it's damaged the rest of the heart. And we need an MRI, so we'll schedule that in 2 weeks. Do the MRI. Make sure you do the MRI, and we'll see if it's scarring. Because if it's scarring, that's bad too. Not as bad as blockages, but that's bad too. Do the MRI, it's not scarring. Now, let's back up to the angiogram. So, do the angiogram on Monday, it's not a blockage. On Sunday at church, I was talking to the pastor, and I said, well, you know, it's not a blockage. And now, this is where it comes down to faith, okay? And let me tell you something about faith, what I know about faith. Thomas Aquinas and St. Francis of Assisi are, you know, just two examples of historical great theologians. And they are known for their doubts. Like, they had tremendous doubts in their faith. Because doubt and faith are two sides of the same coin. And doubt makes faith stronger, and faith makes doubt go away. Okay? And so you can't have one without the other, and they're interrelated, okay? And I told our pastor at our church, and he's a cool guy. He's a first-generation Christian, and I won't go into his story, but the reason I go to that church is because this pastor's different, okay? And right away, I told him what happened. And of course, I'm still thinking I've got these VTs, so I've got one foot in the grave because the VTs are bad. And lack of faith, right? And instantly, I said to him, I said, well, the arteries were clear, and so we're going to go from there. And he was like, well, you're healed. Like, he just jumped right there. Like God healed you. Like, you're okay. And I was like, yeah, maybe, right? I don't have the faith that he has. I wish I did. It turns out he was right. Okay, let me explain. So anyway, the reason why, and then he does this thing called Big Wins, and I went out in front of everybody and I said, well, I had these things, and they did the angiogram, and our arteries are 100% clear, but I was doubting. Okay, I was still like, the VTs are bad, I've got these VTs, and So what they didn't tell me is that, and so let's go further down the line. So the cardiologist, it turns out it wasn't scarring from the MRI, and then the cardiologist was like, well, that's it. I went as far as I can go. He said, now I'm going to recommend you to the Heart Failure Institute, which is just a different floor, different doctors in the same building, and they deal with things in a different way. And so I meet with this next doctor, and he nailed it. This guy was on it. Okay, he had reviewed my whole chart, and people, the other doctor and other people had said it could be sleep apnea, it could be this, it could be the other thing, it could be whatever, high blood pressure, whatever. And this doctor said it's not sleep apnea. And this doctor said it's not high blood pressure. He said he was guessing, but he said, I'm willing to bet it's hereditary. And let's do the hereditary test and find out. Okay. So we do the hereditary test, 100% it's hereditary. Now, high blood pressure doesn't help, okay? And it turns out that if you lose weight and lower your blood pressure, you can actually reverse HCM. Not to the point where it's 100%, but you can. It's either going to get bigger and you die over 10 years, or it's going to get smaller and you live a happily ever after. Okay. So we do the genetic test. It turns out he's 100% correct. It is genetic. He says, okay, now we treat the HCM. He said there's two kinds of HCM. There's obstructive HCM, in which the muscle's gotten so big that it blocks the blood flow to one of the valves, or non-obstructive HCM, where it's not big enough yet, or the gradient isn't obstructing the valve. He said, we can tell that by putting you on a treadmill and doing an echocardiogram while your heart's really pumping. All right, do the treadmill, did pretty good on the treadmill, and comes back, and I just met with him on Monday. And when I met with him on Monday, he said, it's non-obstructive by the letter of the law, but it's close to being obstructive. And he said, I'm going to classify it as obstructive, so this way, in the future, if it gets bigger, there's drugs I can give you that I can't give you if it's non-obstructive. So I'm not giving you any drugs now. We're not going to do that. As a matter of fact, he took me off one of my blood pressure medicines. But anyway, but I asked him, okay, and I said to him, there's something I don't understand. What I don't understand is, back in September, the ventricular tachycardia rhythm that I had, everybody freaked out like I'm about to die. And now nobody's talking about it. We're just treating the HCM. I said, what's changed? And he said, first of all, what he said was, it's actually NSVT, non-sustained ventricular tachycardia. It's the sustained ventricular tachycardia that's usually caused by a blocked artery 95% of the time, which usually means it's an indicator that you're going to die because of your blocked artery, not because of the rhythm. Well, they didn't explain that to me in September. And depending upon how you want to look at it, the pastor was right. I actually kind of was healed in a way. So it comes down to faith, right? I worried about it for 2-3 months. I didn't have to. But it turns out that the reason why they're not worried about the ventricular tachycardia rhythm is because it's very common with people who have HCM. And it's not the ventricular tachycardia that's the problem. It's whatever's causing it, that it's usually an indicator that something really bad's happening. HCM's not really bad. It's not good, but the salient takeaway for me is it doesn't necessarily limit your life expectancy. Okay, so it comes down to faith. Now, how does that apply to photography? Well, the video I made yesterday, photography is broken. Thanks for bearing with me, but again, this is... So it comes down to photography is broken. Well, that's a lack of faith. It's a lack of faith in the sense that all great human endeavors are done because of a strong sense of faith. if you don't have faith in the future, then you don't do anything. And if you have enough doubt, well, you might as well just end it, right? Because what's the point? Why do anything? Okay, the more faith you have, the more hope you have in the future. And whether the future works out the way you want it to or not, you have to have faith that if all you can do is the best that you can, right? And you have to have faith that if you do the best that you can, all right, that somebody somewhere will recognize that work, okay? Interestingly, I've also recently watched the movie Contact that was written by Carl Sagan, the book Contact. And Carl Sagan, you know, his politics aside, he was a champagne liberal and whatever. But the guy was brilliant. And what's interesting about the movie Contact, watching that again, is that, interestingly, Carl Sagan was pretty much a devout atheist, but not really. And what do I mean by that? This is my own personal opinion. If you look at what he said in the movie Contact, it really comes down to what Carl Sagan was not, he had his own faith, okay? In that he invented it, not invented, but he had a belief in something else, right? For him, his religion, his God, was the parts of his science that he couldn't answer. All right, in the sense that, like, if you watch the movie Contact, the aliens and you know, it really comes down to faith, because they really weren't there, but they were there, right? You have to watch the movie to understand what I'm saying. But, and interestingly, other people have said that, you know, religion and science, they tend to fold back into each other at the very top levels, all right? Religion is an interesting thing. I've been a student of comparative religion my whole life. I've taken classes in Islam and Christianity, the history of Christianity, Judaism. I just think it's all fascinating. And one of the things that I've noticed is that, you know, in terms of people who are religious or very, very religious, is that it really comes down to, there's your really, really super smart people, and then there's your people who are not so smart. It's the people who are kind of half smart that have the biggest problems. And that's the category I fall into, have the biggest doubts, okay? And because, you know, with Carl Sagan, like, he could see he just wanted to eliminate the middleman of human religion, because he went straight, you know, to a certain extent. I mean, he's an astrophysicist. He was literally dealing with the creation on a level that most of us couldn't even begin to comprehend. So, I mean, I get his point, all right? I understand where he's coming from, but on the other hand, like, he had his own faith, all right? Problem with that is it's difficult to share with people. It's much easier, you know, to share with people a religion that doesn't involve calculus, chemistry, and physics. Goes without saying. So when it comes to photography, how does this apply to photography? Let me get back on point here. If you want to do great things, you can't have, your faith has to be greater than your doubt. All right, and I've been mired in this quicksand of doubt for the past year, pretty much since the Michael Kenna show, and I needed to reaffirm my faith in my photography, in the sense that, you know, images on a screen are fine. All right, it's a new way, and if that's what turns you on, groovy. All right, I shouldn't be telling people how wrong social media is and how wrong all that is. That's the wrong way to go about this. The correct way to go about this is to say to people, look, I know I've experienced your social media, I've experienced your images on a screen, and I'm telling you, when it comes to photography, there's something greater, okay? There's the printed image. There's the image on dry mounted to matte board, which improves the image quality. And, you know, when you hold in your hands a photograph that you know is going to last 500 to 1,000 years, and there's a chance, I'm not saying there will be, there's not a certainty, but there's a chance that sometime 100 years from now, somebody's look at this photograph and they're going to say, wow, that's cool. Because it's going to look the same if it's taken care of, it's not in a flood or a fire, right? And people take care of it. So, I mean, look at Ansel Adams' work. It's 50, 70, 80 years old now. It still looks to the day it was made. So really what it comes down to is virtue is its own reward. Okay? And you have to have the faith that what you're doing is worthy. And all you can do is make what you're doing worthy and have the faith that the audience will show up. As Ansel Adams said, there's two participants in a photograph, the photographer and the viewer. Well, I was having doubts, a crisis of faith, a deep night of the soul in photography, that the viewers had all gone away and they're all on TikTok. Okay? The way to proceed is to espouse the benefits and the joys of real photography. I'm biased, okay? The printed image, the archival printed image, rather than disparaging people flipping through images on their phones. All right, virtual images are what they are. Now, I am very suspicious that there's a lot of people that subconsciously or consciously, have a passion for photography, but the only way that they're manifesting that passion is through creating virtual work virtually on a screen. And, after a while, all the likes you get, it's vapid, it's virtual, it's not real, all right? And I have a feeling that people are very unsatisfied eventually with that. And personally, I can tell you that the antidote to being unsatisfied by only creating virtual images electronically is to make physical prints. And so I'm going to try to shift a new direction in the sense that I need to have the faith to make the work as best as I can make it. I'm not going to worry about the audience. If it never comes, not my problem. But I have to have the faith that it will, and if it comes in 100 years or 200 years, that's fine too. So that's where I'm coming from now. Subscribe, subscribe. Thanks for watching. The reason to subscribe is right now it's kind of the only way that you can tell me that you like what I'm doing and you like the work that I'm doing and you like the journey I'm on of discovery. So subscriptions are where it's at in this modern paradigm. It's the only way my photography is getting out there right now. And, so subscriptions are where it's at. But keep the faith, have the faith, do good work, do the best work you can, and don't worry about the rest. Carl Sagan got it right. The aliens in the movie Contact, when Jodie Foster met the aliens, which manifested as her dad, he said to her, your species is so alone, but all they really have is each other. Yeah, and that's true. So God bless y'all. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And in 2026, we'll see you out there. Have a great one.